Hello, 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 and welcome. My name is Sabrina Victoria. This is Her Talk Show. We are going to be talking all about rebranding today with Beatrice. I'm so excited. So, you ladies in the realm of business, entrepreneurship, we want you to get comfortable. We're going to be exploring some of the triumphs, some of the challenges faced by women worldwide. And Beatrice is here to offer some insights, some inspiration to fuel your professional growth, but girl, also our personal growth. So let's jump in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
I love that we're talking about rebranding right now, and the fact that like half of my YouTube is rebranded and the other half isn't. Like, for instance, that little last thing that pops up is from like 3 rebrands ago. So this is just fucking perfect. As far as even just like, girl, you got to just roll, just keep evolving. And it's not all going to be perfect all the time. So anyways, ladies, we got Beatrice here. She's the best. If you're listening live, I see you jumping on. Thank you so much. If you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can show you some love. But listen, I'm here every day. We delve deep into the realms of health, wealth, and leadership with some of the most brilliant women globally. I've interviewed close to 700 women, and today we are adding another one to the list. Badassery is defined as the behavior, characteristics, or actions regarded as impressive. And that's what Beatrice brings to the table, and how she sees businesses deserve to be seen. She's about taking your seemingly boring business and shaking up how it's seen inside out through practical actions to stand the heck out, not 69-page documents, pre-designs, or templates. Welcome, lady.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on, Sabrina. It's such a badass intro. I love it.
Yes, and I'm so excited. This is actually perfect timing. Right before we jumped on, Beatrice was like, yeah, I'm not down with like the whole rebranding thing. Like, she's not. And I'm like, girl, I'm telling everybody I'm rebranding right now. So I kind of want to jump into that like right away. Like, well, what is your thoughts on the word, right? It's because it's all just, right, just made up shit. We just like say a bunch of word noises, and like certain word noises trigger certain things for different people. So I'd love to hear your like thoughts on the word, or how society views rebrand, and then how I'm viewing it.
Okay. So firstly, my thoughts as rebrand in the way that most of society and businesses, when they're looking at rebrands, approach it is fuck rebrands, because they're often approached in a way that it is very visual forward, very messaging, very like logo. It's all the outside facing things, but on the inside, nothing has really changed. And so most of the companies, somebody messaged me if you know one that hasn't faced this, but if they've done a big rebrand and it's taken them months and they've dropped it, they've lost market share. They've lost market value, trust, and loyalty as a matter of that. If you think from X to Twitter, their move, it only hurt their brand. Pretty Little Things, same thing. I mean, Jaguar, like they lost their entire essence because they wanted to go so far. Yes, they went into the complete rebrand, but they didn't need to do that and lose majority of their audience. So that is my perspective in terms of how rebrand, like the word rebrand, is usually seen.
Totally.
The way that I would approach it is going to reposition the business, seeing where, either looking at your competition, or you're looking at your processes, or you're looking at your entire customer journey and reviewing that for things that have always been done.
Got it.
That's what you want to push back on. And then refreshing based on that. So your core is still the same.
This is interesting. So then what is a visual? Is that a facelift? Is that a makeover? What would be the verbiage for that?
For visuals, we're saying like you're putting a fresh new logo, or you're changing up the whole color scheme, fonts, etc. It's all the front-facing things, right? But the way that you do business, the way that your team communicate with customers are still the same, right? So say, for example, I just saw this great ad by Mentos that shows a good approach of connecting with younger audience, because now Gen Z is moving into Gen Alpha very soon as well. But you still want to resonate with the older audience. Now, their packaging, everything is exactly the same as what it was. But they've taken that nostalgia thing of, do you remember when you'd mix Mentos and put it in cola and watch the reaction? So they leaned into that, made it into bazooka, and used it in the theme of like a Fortnite game. So it's leaning into what Gen Z are into at the moment, but the nostalgia triggers our generation without changing up the whole brand.
That's gorgeous. Love it. And I haven't even seen that. I have to look that up. So as far as what people are calling rebrand, which is when they're just refacing everything, what would be the terminology that they should be using besides rebrand? Should it just be refacing? Face makeover? A makeover? Refresh?
Yeah, so there it is kind of like it's an identity change, like a brand identity refresh, right? Because when you're looking at what a real rebrand would be, it's pretty much like gutting your apartment, right? Everything is going to change, from the doors, the handles, everything. So that means your goals, your mission, all the aspects will change.
Got it. Yeah. So if we're taking into consideration my business, I've been through 2 facelifts, and then this third one is a complete rebrand. All the internal workings are completely changing, realigning, reorganized, and up leveling to like a whole new everything.
Oh, yeah.
So this would be a true rebrand. So technically, I guess I've been through 1 versus what I just told you before we opened up, which I said 3. I get that. And I actually totally agree with that. And I do think that people do misuse it all the time.
Absolutely. And I think what I would recommend most of the time is you don't need to do a full rebrand.
Yeah.
Right. Like that, those are very expensive ventures and can go into the millions of dollars, when often you're waiting months for a result to come through, like for even the change, right? People that you're, the brand people that you're working with, they're going to want to drop it at a certain point, versus repositioning and then refreshing based on that. You're changing as you go, right? So like you refresh and go through your values, for example, or your differentiation. And then you go through, okay, how does this implement with the team? How can I change this on my newsletter, on my website? So there's small changes that people won't necessarily notice, but if you have a look 6 months before and after, there's going to be a clear difference.
Yeah, totally can see that. So as far as you talk a lot about strategies and making sure that the entire team has bought into those new strategies, and you kind of label that as kind of being step 1. Can you kind of dissect that a little bit?
So once you have a clear strategy, and it should be less than a page, you have that direction. This is the way that we're going to go. Then it's even from the beginning, you're asking the team. It's like, hey, guys, how do you feel the values are at the moment? Or what do you feel like the position is at the moment? Because often they're on the face end, right? And you might not be getting that full information. So having that environment where they can give feedback without any kind of repercussions will only benefit that. So it's great to have somebody that's working with your team so that there is no conflict. And then you're building the brand alongside that. And then when you want to implement it, you're like, okay, so guys, let's talk about values, for example. Hone in on one thing and be like, okay, guys, how do you see this in the way that you work your day to day? Because a brand doesn't mean you're using the exact same words every single place. It's having that essence and how that's portrayed in different places. That way you're getting your team's buy-in. They're like, oh yeah, no, Sabrina's taken my idea on this and I'm excited. And that will show in those customer interactions as well.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So when we're talking about the steps, when we're talking about the key steps to a effective rebranding, which you call them the secret steps, what would be the second one?
So having it clear in terms of what is that differentiation, the position, because first you're having your team bought in, then you're going into like, okay, so how can we be positioned differently? And I've had different experiences of what works for different companies. You need to look into different areas. There's no one solution or one answer here. Maybe you have a look at what competition are doing and there's a gap there that you've been doing for years already. That's something that you can lean into, you can double down on and take away a few other things so that you can really focus in on that. Or you're looking at your buyer's journey and think, okay, so before they usually work with me, what are the steps that they go through? What are the challenges that they face? Like, for example, I took a trip to Prague a few weeks ago and I was walking a lot. And I was walking all with like Converse shoes. It's like, okay, I feel great. My feet feel great. This is fantastic. These shoes are awesome. So I come back and then start going back into the gym. Yeah, I know I should have gone to the gym even while I was away, but nonetheless, a couple days in, the bottom of my foot started getting some electrical type pain.
Totally, I get it.
And I was like, what is this? Maybe it's going to go away after a few days. And it didn't go away. And I was talking to friends. I was checking with ChatGPT, all these things. And finally, one friend was like, why don't you talk with a physio? Okay, fine. And only at that point did I consider a physio. So say, for example, you are that physio. You could see, okay, hey, let's talk about the kind of footwear and what are the implications when you're traveling, for example. What could happen if you're walking thousands of footsteps? And that way you're not being considered later on in the buyer journey. You're being considered way earlier. So you're looking through the buyer journey, you're checking competition, and then You're looking at, third thing, your own processes. What do you do that's kind of pushing back against what is the norm in your industry? Then pulling that and honing in on that.
Love that. And I love this analogy that you're using of the physio, because a lot of times, and I tell my clients this all the time, as far as, because we're not speaking enough about who we are and what we do and all the aspects of what we do, individuals a lot of times don't even know what's even going on over there. Like, I don't even really know what she does. So there's two things: either they don't do it at all, or they try to stick everything that they do into one post. Like, just vomit all over the place, where people just listen in for a second and they're like, oh my God, this is like so much. So exactly to Beatrice's explanation here, going into the intricacies of our business, of exactly what we do, but doing it in little bite-sized pieces in all the areas along one vision, not 17 visions, just one vision, is what we're missing.
Yep.
That's what we're missing. So she's basically saying that she didn't even think about this other option because it's never been in her face before. There's no videos, there's no dude in her world or woman in her world that's telling her, hey, I am a person that knows about shoes and traveling and walking. Didn't even occur to her. She's freaking talking to ChatGPT. So everyone's talking about how ChatGPT is going to take over your job. Yeah, it is going to take over your job because you're not doing your job. You're not doing. I love that. I love that analogy. That is the truth of it, is as raw as it gets in a real-time story. So what next? So we have number one, we need a clear strategy that involves the team. Number two, we need to reposition in the know. And then three.
Three is getting that implemented. So looking at what that looks like in a differentiated voice. So like understanding, hey, what are the values? What is that differentiation? What does that look like in terms of the voice? And then once you have that clear voice, so it's like build a character. I like to give this this example of, think of your 2 or 3 favorite pop culture icons, be it like book, be it movie, series, right? And pull out 3 characters. What are the attributes that resonate with your brand? What are the attributes that you're like, nah, never mind? And then start looking into, okay, what would that look like if they were having a conversation with a customer? What are the quirks that you could integrate into your brand? So there you're starting to build out a clear voice, because sometimes it's hard to look within and go, what does my voice really sound like? It's easier to look outside. It's easier to help other people, right?
Okay, so so you're saying take 3 icons, like the first person, which some people might get offended by this, but the first person I thought of was Michael Jackson. He was huge when I was growing up. That's what I think of when I think of like an icon back in the day. It's freaking MJ. I used to watch all of his stuff with my dad and like freaking loved Michael Jackson. So when I think about like the brand of Michael Jackson, what does that look like? What does that sound like? Right. And then those attributes that might make his brand, what are the same attributes that I should be having in my brand to make it as iconic? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Got it.
Are there any quirks that, or even his approach, right? Is it the way that he talks, or is it the way that he dresses, or is it his style? Like, what are the elements that you most resonate with from his side? What are the values that he has that you resonate with? List those down, and then you can come to values that actually link up to your brand. And make sure, again, get your team in there being like, hey, what do you feel like our values are? And what do you think about these when you come to that later on? Make sure that they connect. And then from building that character, you can start defining the messaging, defining how it's written, defining the visuals, because the visuals are at the end. You know, any updates to graphics, whether it be small touches, changing to black and white or grayscale or a certain style. And then with a team, customer service. Hey guys, you know, we have this kind of vibe, this kind of voice. What do you feel like? How do you think this would play in your day-to-day? How would you make it play? You know, just the core essence. Don't, you know, give them, here's the script. Let them play with it.
This is very interesting. I'd love to talk a little bit about, so I love how you're saying to worry about all the visuals and all of the, I guess, the front facing at the end, right? To make sure it matches, I guess, the internal voice. When we're talking about discovering, you know, what our brand's voice is, you know, the message, how does somebody sit down and figure that out? Like I'm sitting down right now and I'm like, okay, I need to figure out my brand's voice. Like how do you even do that as a business owner?
So we go back to the exercise that we did earlier in terms of the characters, right?
Yeah.
You're already starting to build accents to it. I would, from there, build out a little word bank. Okay, these are the common words. Completely remove any kind of jargon because that's anyway not going to stick. But the common words, and what are words that you might be able to add in, right? You still want to make sure your brand stays in the known, but there's quirks like for badassery. A lot of people will connect and they'll be like, oh, you know, you're kangaroo, or the way that you know, you're always saying hex yeah, or the word badass. Every time I see the word badass, I think of you. And it's like, so it's those little things that you use consistently.
Right.
You don't need to completely think of an entire message. You build it up, right? One thing at a time. Okay, what's the tagline, for example? And then the next thing, and then the next thing.
I love this. So the simplicity of that, just to kind of break it down for you ladies, Beatrice, her, the name of her company, as you can see, her website down here, Badassery. And then on her website, she has, is it one kangaroo, the same kangaroo? Is it all kinds of kangaroos? Just one?
One kangaroo. Her name is Rue.
Ruth?
Rue. R-O-O.
I love that. So yeah, so what a simple, not that we should all have like turtles or rabbits or fucking jaguars on our website, right? Like it has to make sense. But what a great way to help individuals realize how easy that is, right? Every time I could see that, like now every time I see a kangaroo, I think of Beatrice. I do want to ask, for those that are listening, by the way, we have a ton of people listening live. Thank you so much for being here. I'm trying to like put myself in the shoes of somebody who knows that they just need to up level themselves. Like they need to go through something like this with a company like Beatrice's, where we're rebranding our stuff. How, like, I'm thinking of like a dentist. Because sometimes we think that we're like, dude, like my stuff is so boring. Like I'm a business coach. You know, I'm like a trauma coach. So you're talking about icons, Michael Jackson. Like I'm talking to people about like trauma with their dad. Like how, like, is there some questions that they can ask themselves? Because like I understand, I can like conceptualize Michael Jackson and we can all be like, oh, he's so much fun. Oh, the dancing, the vibe, the glove, the, you know, the sparkly outfits. He has like his stance. He's got the curl. But like, I'm a trauma coach. There's like none of that. So what is like a question or two questions that I could ask myself in a profession that's not like as vivacious as a rebranding company like the one that you own, that's maybe a little more subtle, where we can't really understand the connection between Michael Jackson and my company? Do you have like a question or two that they can kind of simplify it with?
There's a couple of approaches. One, and this is a thing that I've seen, I believe in California, one of the dentists, he's a skateboarder on the side, but his entire office has got skateboards, and people connect and resonate with his business for that reason. They will reach out. They're like, oh, there's that skateboarder dentist. It doesn't. You don't have to be on a skateboard while you're doing dentist work. That would be very dangerous. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
But we always want to connect with a brand. It's either escapism or to really connect, and that's why escapism, things like Bridgerton or Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. It's why, there's such a big following, and you can do that with your business as well. It's like, hey, let's create this world that's got all of these elements, but one specific element. Choose one thing that you guys will be interested in. And another way is honing into one of the practices that you don't necessarily do the same as the rest of the industry, and talking about that a lot, like just honing all of your conversations, all of your messaging around that specific element. And I'm going to jump back into what you mentioned about the mascot and push back on that, because that is an option if, for example, your team has a lot of different opinions, or they're very shy, or they're boring, which I don't necessarily believe. You can lean into having that mascot. Again, it's having that connection, and you're building out your messaging related to that. Like I'll talk about hop into it, kangaroo related thing. Or, I'll end the videos with hitting the camera with a baseball bat because the mascot has a baseball bat. So it's those little things. You don't necessarily need to go into that therapy session with a baseball bat or something crazy, but maybe you have on the wall this collection of Pokemon cards or something like that, and they're always in the background when you're talking about how you do your approach, but people will notice it.
Yeah, what came to mind is bows. Like I've been seeing a lot of bows with the ladies lately. That's kind of like warm and therapeutic-esque. Like have a big bow, like a picture of a pink bow or red bow, and then maybe she's always wearing a bow earrings, bow in her hair, bow on her collar, a bow pin. So then it's just a bow, and it's simple, doesn't make any noise, not an animal. It's loving, it's calm, it's sweet, it's like innocent, like a therapist.
Exactly. There's one lady I've seen on Instagram that's got, she's, instead of, the microphone, just holding it like this, right?
Yeah.
She's got it clipped onto a flower. Every video has her holding a flower and talking like that. And that's how I remember her.
Yeah.
She's like microphone flower girl.
I love that.
It just needs to be one simple thing. You don't need to overcomplicate it, but don't change it up. Pick something and stick to it, because that is as easy as just you're losing the trust. People come for that reason.
Yeah.
And they're going to stay for that reason.
Yeah. This reminds me of Mr. Beast. I don't know if you follow him, but he was talking about how like he went all in on Mr. Beast before he was Mr. Beast. And then halfway through, he was like, I want to use my real name. I want people to know my real name. I don't want to be Mr. Beast. Like Tony Robbins is like, he has his name, you know, like Les Brown has a name, like everyone's with their name. So he like changed it back to his name. I don't know what his name is. It's like Sean or something. And he did that for like a couple months. Everything fell.
Mm-hmm.
Everything fell. And he was like forced to go back to Mr. Beast because the brand was just so strong.
And that's why I say, don't rebrand. It's only going to hurt your business if you're going to take it to that level. Just make the change, stick to the change. Keep it something that you're already doing, and just kind of lean into it.
Beautiful. Good stuff. Love all of this. What else? I'd love for you to talk a little bit about who you work with. So do you work with small, mid, large size companies? And then what exactly do you do? Do you do only rebranding, or is there other things within your repertoire that you work on with these individuals?
So I work with businesses that they've been around for at least 5 years, and highly recommend anyone who's just started, please don't spend money on rebrand or expensive marketing. Go work with clients, build up what works for you, because those first 6 months, 1 year, even 2 years, I want to say,
you're still even trying to figure out what you want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you're going to hate your brand if you spend within that first period.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, oh, it doesn't really resonate with me.
Yeah.
So don't spend. So it's businesses that they've been around for at least 5 years, and they're small to medium sized. I try to avoid corporate because, there's too many layers. By the time you get something done, it's been a year.
Yeah.
Or maybe 2.
Yeah.
Right. And mainly in North America and a little bit in UK.
Beautiful.
Aside from that, what was your second question? Now my head is blanking.
You answered it. I think you already answered. I said, what exactly? Is it only rebranding, or do you do other entities?
So I don't do rebranding. I focus on repositioning, and there's different ways I approach it. It's either through 12-week stints that we can cover through the start of it, a fair chunk of it, or going through and implementing, we build out the strategy, then we implement throughout your whole business over a year. Or one that I'm currently building up is a done for you solution where we reposition, clarify what's your reposition, the strategy around that, and I will work with your team to implement it for you.
Gorgeous. And then men, women, both? Any certain niche of work?
Mainly service-based B2B businesses.
So no products. You work predominantly service. Okay. Yeah.
Same. Yeah. And I've been working with quite a few businesses recently that they're moving from a brick and mortar business to online. So you've already built up that client base online, in person, and you want to make sure that, hey, let's get that online to have that same vibe, to have that same feel, and to level up both.
Gorgeous. And then people that want to follow you, where do you hang out the most on social media, website? What do you got going on?
So I've got 3 main locations. For your eyes, I have the Badass Mob newsletter, which comes out every Friday, 10 a.m. And that breaks down one strategy and implementation by department. How can you do that? For your ears, the Art of Branding podcast, which is currently in hiatus, but season 3 will be coming out soon in terms of implementation. And finally, LinkedIn, where there is a mix of the visual, video, messaging, all that. I've kind of popped back on TikTok. Interestingly enough, it is popping over there
Popping over where?
on TikTok.
Oh, dude, I low-key am obsessed with TikTok.
I just post. Like, I don't, like, otherwise I'll just be lost in another feed.
And whenever I'll ask people, I'll be like, dude, are you on TikTok? They'll be like, no. I'm like, okay, don't get on it. I was just kidding. Because it's so bad. I was just talking to yesterday, I interviewed a health and wellness woman who specialized in perimenopause. And I'm 42. So like I'm right at the cusp of like supposedly having it. I don't know. And like the symptoms are there, but I'm just like straight up fucking refusing to just fall into that category. But anyways, we were talking about sleep. She's like, how much sleep are you getting? I'm like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. She's like, girl, like you need 8 hours of sleep, like 8 to 9 hours of sleep. And with the age that you are and the woman that you are, and like, she's like, are you gaining weight around your midsection? I'm like, yeah. She's like, are you dizzy and drowsy during the day? I'm like, yeah. She's like, she's like, do you find yourself just eating uncontrollably because you're so tired? Yeah. She's like, okay, girl.
Oh no.
What I told her was like, I do stay up late because I get my second wind for working right around like 6:30, and I'll go all the way till like 1 o'clock, and I'm just fucking banging out shit like so fucking fast at night. So then I'll crawl into bed at like midnight, and then I'll be like, I don't want to just go to bed. Like I want to like do something. So I'll open up TikTok and I'll be like, I'm just gonna watch like 3 TikToks. Like I'll find some funny ones, and then I'll go to bed. But what happens is like the first 3 videos just suck balls. They're like scary or weird, or they're like sad. So I'm searching for funny ones. So then I'm like searching for funny ones, and then like 20 minutes goes by, and then I like find a funny one, and I'm like, well, that was funny, but it wasn't like that funny. I want to like go to sleep with something like really funny, so I can just go to bed so happy.
No.
So before I know it, an hour goes by, and then I'm like pissed because like there's an hour that I could have actually been working, but I was actually on TikTok. So then I'm just mad. So then I'm like, then I stay up for an extra half hour, just mad at myself, mad scrolling. So anyways, we were laughing, and she's like, girl.
Such a vicious cycle. Yeah, I like, that's why I spend most of my time like on LinkedIn, and then like there's a bit of backup like on Instagram, and TikTok is just posting. But what I found is though recently, LinkedIn articles, they are hitting. The posts less so, but articles, they are being pushed out. So
yeah, I write articles. We have a girl in our group who's like a LinkedIn guru, and she started talking about that. So I started writing them. I've written like 6 maybe. They're good. So yeah, I'm pretty active I'm pretty active across all of my social, but mostly Facebook. I'm like on Facebook. Like myself, TikTok, I scroll. I'm not really doing anything. I'm just fucking scrolling. But Facebook, I'm active. Like that's where all my people are.
The one thing you sent me is like, get on Facebook, and I'm like, I'm not active on, like, it's the one channel. I'm like, don't get on it.
Young. How old are you?
30. Wait, about to turn 35.
Oh, you're not. Yeah, that's kind of Facebooky-ish. But yeah, I'm 42. I'm like the era of Facebook. Like we were the first ones on Facebook. Like we had to like delete all of our shitty high school pictures from like.
Maybe that's part of why I don't want to be on Facebook.
Yeah, even my son's 21, and he's opening up or has already. It's 3 years in, but he's looking to expand. He works with real estate agents. He does video and pictures for the housing for them to sell their houses. So advertising, I guess, marketing. And he's like, Mom, I think I'm gonna have to get on Facebook. I'm like, yeah, dude. He's like, yeah, that's where all the boomers are. That's where all the real estate agents are. So like, yeah, dude.
Another channel, God.
Yeah, you got to know where you're right. You got to know where your clients are. You know,
LinkedIn and podcasts are pretty awesome. I do feel that.
Yeah, LinkedIn, with what you're in, LinkedIn, absolutely. Yeah. I should be more on LinkedIn. I'm just not.
It's a good combo, regardless. Like the way I feel social media channels is there are going to be your people on each of them. It's just, is that leaning into your strengths or not?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, this is great. I took a ton of notes. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing some of this freaking awesomeness with us. For those of you that are still watching live, thank you for being here, hanging out. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
Firstly, just thank you so much for having me on, Sabrina. This is such an awesome conversation. And I love having those like real applications where we can just talk about, hey, what would this look like in a dentistry? But yeah, no, it's been fantastic and can't wait to check it out and talk to more people about it.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, lady. To our dedicated listeners who made it all the way to the very end, thank you for being here. Remember to follow, like, and share. Once again, I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. I run an amazing community here connected to her talk show. It's called Her Nation Global, where we continue to have uplifting conversations every step of the way for women personally and women professionally. And we hang out in a Facebook group called Her Nation Global. The clickable link is in the description below, along with Badassery is also in a clickable link. So you want to check out Beatrice and all the goodness that she's doing over there. I'm sure all her socials are on that website too. Make sure you follow, like, and share. Until next time, do something awesome today. Much